What is up, guys? So it is October 2020, and over a year ago Sony announced the A7R IV, and you're probably wondering why I just bought an A7R III when the new model has been out for over a year now, and there's a bunch of reasons why I chose the R3 over the R4, so I'm going to break those down in this video. Alright, so just for a little bit of a timeline, my current camera and the camera that I'm currently recording with, the A7 III, came out April 10th, 2018. And I've had it pretty much since it came out, so I've been using it for a few years now. My previous camera was the A7 II. Now, the A7R III was announced on October 2017, so a few years ago at this point, and the A7R IV was September of 2019. So these cameras have been out for quite some time at this point. I've been using the A7 III for a long time, and I absolutely love it. It's an incredible camera, and for the amount of photo work and video work that I do, it is the perfect hybrid camera. However, there's kind of a new world I want to dive into and something I've already been working on, but I just kind of want to take to the next level, so that is something that I needed the R series for. I'll touch on that a little bit later, but let's dive into this video. So in this video, I'm going to go over my top 5 reasons as to why I chose the A7R III over the A7R IV. But first, let's just kind of compare the specs side by side. So right here, you're looking at the Sony website, and I compared the two lenses, which is a really awesome function that Sony offers. And just scrolling through, I mean, the only difference you're going to see on this page, down to almost the word, is going to be the price and the megapixels. Other than that, these cameras are extremely similar. Another thing about the two cameras is the comparable video shooting capability of 4K 30 and 1080 120 slow-mo. So first off, I'm just going to kind of distinguish the jumps from the R3 to the R4, because there's really not that many. The main thing is going to be the 42 megapixels to the 61 megapixels, but among that there's a few little minor tweaks that I'm just going to list out, and that's going to be real-time tracking with eye autofocus, animal eye autofocus, full-time video eye autofocus, and a little bit slightly better weather sealing, and a few minor ergonomic adjustments, and just kind of the feel of the camera as you're holding it and using it. But without further ado, let's go into the top 5 reasons why I chose the R3 over the R4. So 8K is plenty future-proof for me. That is reason number 1. And you might be wondering, this camera doesn't shoot 8K, but it actually does, and it is the reason that I bought it. It is not going to be shooting video 8K, but it does shoot still frames at 8K. So the A7 III, my current camera, with 24 megapixels, I'm shooting photos at a quality of about 5K. So when I'm doing my time lapses, I stitch together 5K time lapses from raw photos that I turn into video. And I really wanted to take that up a level to 8K time-lapse films that I can release. And the only way to do that was with this A7R III. So the jump to 42 megapixels allows me to take raw photos in 8K and render them into video form at 8K, and that is the main reason that I bought this camera. And for me, 42 megapixels is the perfect amount. The R4 is 61 megapixels, and I'm not sure exactly, but I think that's like 12 or 14K, and that is just so unnecessary. I'll touch on that in a sec. But 42 megapixels at 8K is the perfect amount for me, and to be honest, the standard out there for stock client videos and many other things is still 1080p HD. So 4K is still at the moment kind of future-proof, even though some clients do use it. So 8K I feel like is going to be good and top of the line and future-proof for at least the next 10 years. Alright, number 2 is that 61 megapixels is just way too much for the average photographer. So with the new digital age, and like 90% of web traffic and just usability on things is now on mobile and not so much on desktop, most photographers are just sharing their work on Instagram and their personal websites. And 61 megapixels just is overkill for both of those things. If you're on Instagram, you're not going to be looking at 8K photos. Probably not even going to be looking at 4K photos, and if your Wi-Fi is bad, it's going to be a really pixelated photo. And some websites down-res images just because of loading time. So unless you're shooting like commercial type photography, if you're doing billboards on the regular, you just really don't need 61 megapixels of detail. And honestly, there's a lot of billboards out there that were shot on phones, and it's just kind of a matter of how far you are away to how big the photo is blown up. And for billboards, 24 megapixels on a standard camera is plenty, and 42 is even more so plenty, and I think 61 just gets to a point of way too much overkill. All right, so reason number 3 on why I chose the R3 over the R4 is simply the price, and the R3 is just cheaper than the R4. Something that I'm super annoyed at is for the last month I've been tracking the R3 price, and I've just been waiting to kind of pull the trigger on purchasing this, and the price was $24.99 across the board, every website, every reseller, and I even checked it the morning that I bought it and it was $24.99, and then I went into Best Buy and there must have been a switch in like 2 hours, across the board $27.99. Nothing I could have done about it. I was really, really upset about it, but at the end of the day, I was still getting this camera. But even so, you know, the R3 with tax comes out to about like $2,900, and the R4 retail price is $3,500, so with tax, I think that's probably gonna come out to about $3,800. So there still is a price difference, about $1,000, which is a huge difference because this is a big investment to start with. Reason number 4 is storage and just kind of the user friendliness of the camera. So on my A7 III, you know, the average raw photo file is about 25 megabytes. And on the R3 it is about 80 megabytes, and I'm not sure what it is on the R4, but my guess would be it's about 120 megabytes. And this is a lot of file information. This is a lot of pixel data. This is gonna take up a lot of room on your hard drives. You're just gonna be ripping through hard drives with these type of file sizes. And then you're gonna have to be double backing stuff up, triple backing stuff up. So you're just gonna be, it's gonna get really expensive really quick with hard drives and storage. And again, at the end of the day, 90% of people don't need this level of pixel information in their photos. So why would you be spending all this money on storage for these photos if you don't even need it? So with this, kind of just the day-to-day, you know, user friendliness of the camera with the R4 just kind of goes down the drain. Because of this, you know, there's gonna be a lot more headache involved with importing these files, processing these files, storing these files, rendering these files, just things like that. Also, to be honest, if you're gonna be shooting files that are 8K on the R3, you're already gonna need a super powerful computer to handle these types of files. Just the raw photos and then stitching them together in like After Effects. So on the R4, I can't even imagine trying to process something like a 12K time lapse. It just seems so absurd. So that's another thing you have to consider. With the price will just add up in a lot of little hidden corners. And number 5, my last reason, is that megapixels aside, the R3 is about 95% of the camera that the R4 is. And with the R3, it's a lot cheaper, it's a lot more user-friendly, and overall it's just a better camera for the average photographer out there. Other than a few minor differences and tweaks that most people wouldn't notice, including myself, the only real difference between these cameras is the megapixels. Also, the video specs are essentially the same as far as specs go. You know, the autofocus might be better on the R4 just by a little bit, but to be honest, if you're getting the R series camera, you're probably not doing that much video anyway, so it's probably just an afterthought and it doesn't matter that much to you. And at the end of the day, I kind of just feel like the R4 is like a camera of the future. You know, we're just not at a point where we need those types of specs. We're not at a point where we need that much pixel information on a photo. You know, I'm not gonna be looking at my photos with a magnifying glass after I blow them up to a huge print size. It just doesn't make much sense to me. And I just don't think kind of like the rest of technology has caught up to what the R4 can produce. And the R3 is most of what that camera is, but just all in all, I think a better option. Anyways, that's gonna wrap up this video, guys. I hope you guys found some value in this. I am super, super excited to get this thing out on the road and start shooting time lapses with this. It's the first new camera I've bought in I think over 2 years since I got the A7 III, and I'm super pumped to start being able to shoot 8K time lapses. I've only messed with this in the store and at Best Buy, and it's a beast, so I am super, super excited. And I just think it was a much better choice for so many different reasons than getting the R4. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you later.